the wise calf and the impatient goat. It was an early morning at Green Meadow Farm. The rooster had just crowed, announcing the start of a new day. In the barn, the animals began to stir. Among them was Bessie, a calm and thoughtful calf, who was already awake and chewing on some hay in the corner. She enjoyed these peaceful moments, where the world seemed still and quiet. Meanwhile, across the barn, Gregor, the young goat, was not having such a peaceful start to his day. He was running around in circles, bleating loudly, and knocking over a bucket of water. Bessie, Bessie, it's a beautiful day. Why are you just sitting there? There's so much to do. Gregor called out, his voice full of energy. Bessie looked up from her hay. Gregor, can you keep it down? You're making a racket. But there's so much excitement in the air. Gregor exclaimed, bouncing around like a rubber ball. We could be running around the meadow, jumping off rocks, finding secret treasure. Doing things. Bessie raised an eyebrow. And what exactly are you doing now, running around like a mad goat? Gregor stopped mid-bounce and grinned. Well, that's called getting ready, Bessie. Preparation is key. Bessie rolled her eyes. You need to learn the importance of patience, Gregor. It's not about rushing into everything. Sometimes, you need to wait and think. Patience? Bah. I don't have time for patience. I've got adventures to go on, Gregor said, prancing around again. Bessie shook her head, clearly used to Gregor's antics. You may want to slow down. Sometimes, rushing leads to mistakes. Gregor stopped in his tracks, giving Bessie a puzzled look. Mistakes? I don't make mistakes. I'm the fastest goat on the farm. Bessie sighed. You might be fast, but that doesn't mean you're doing things right. Patience and thinking things through are what get results. Later that morning, Farmer Joe had asked Bessie and Gregor to check the fence that ran along the edge of the pasture. There were rumors that a few of the boards were loose and needed fixing. All right, Gregor. We need to check the fence, Bessie said, as she led the way out of the barn. Gregor leapt out of the barn, eager to get started. Let's go, let's go. I bet we can fix this fence in 5 minutes if we work fast enough. Bessie kept walking at a steady pace. Gregor, slow down. Rushing through the work won't help. Gregor stopped in front of a big rock and made a dramatic leap over it. Patience is for slowpokes, Bessie. We need speed. Speed is what wins the race. Bessie gave a small chuckle. Gregor, sometimes it's not about racing. It's about doing things right. Gregor wasn't listening. He had already dashed ahead, bounding toward the fence. See, Bessie? I'm already halfway there. I'm going to finish this before you even get there. Gregor called out, grinning ear to ear. Bessie took her time, making sure her steps were careful and thoughtful. By the time she arrived at the fence, she noticed that Gregor had already begun yanking at one of the loose boards. His hooves were slipping all over the place, and he was clearly getting frustrated. Gregor, stop. Bessie called. You're making it worse. I'm not making it worse. Gregor shouted back. I'm fixing it. Look. He yanked the board one more time, and it came loose completely, falling to the ground with a loud crash. Bessie sighed. See what I mean? If you had just taken your time, we could have fixed it properly without all the mess. Gregor looked at the broken board with wide eyes. Oh, well, I guess I didn't think that through. Bessie shook her head. You can't just rush into things and expect them to work out. Sometimes, you need to step back and think before acting. All right, Gregor said with a small grunt. So, what's the plan now? You going to lecture me for another hour? Bessie smiled, glad Gregor was finally listening. The plan is simple. We'll fix the fence carefully. I'll take the board out, and you can hold it steady while I nail it back in place. Gregor gave her a mock salute. Yes, ma'am. The patient expert will lead the way. Bessie shook her head and got to work. She calmly removed the nails, checked the board, and started nailing it back into place. Gregor, now standing still, watched in awe. See, Gregor? This is how you do it. Step by step, no rushing, just steady work. Gregor sighed, realizing she was right. All right, I get it. Patience is key. Bessie smiled. Exactly. Now, let's finish this job, and then we can do something fun. After successfully fixing the fence, Bessie and Gregor took a break near the old oak tree. Gregor, having learned a little about the value of patience, sat down beside Bessie, looking a bit thoughtful. You know, Bessie, I was thinking about what you said, Gregor began, looking at the sky. Maybe I do rush a little too much. It's just, I like doing things fast. I like the thrill of it. Bessie smiled. I understand. It's fun to be fast, but you don't always have to race through life. Sometimes, the best moments happen when you take your time. Gregor nodded slowly. Yeah, but still, I think we should race. Bessie raised an eyebrow. Race? After everything we just talked about. Gregor grinned mischievously. Exactly. A race. But this time, I'll do it patiently. I'll take my time, but I'm still going to win. Bessie chuckled. All right, Gregor. I'm up for it. But remember, this time, it's not about who finishes first. It's about how you run the race. Gregor gave her a confident nod. Got it. I'll race patiently. The two of them stood up, lined up at the starting point, and looked toward the finish line at the other end of the field. Ready, set, go. Bessie called. Gregor immediately took off, his hooves kicking up dirt as he dashed ahead. But this time, instead of sprinting at full speed, he held back a little, pacing himself and looking around with interest as he ran. Bessie, on the other hand, took her time. She walked calmly, making sure to step carefully and enjoy the surroundings. As Gregor approached the halfway mark, he looked over his shoulder to see Bessie far behind. Huh, I'm winning, Gregor shouted, picking up speed. But as he passed a patch of mud, his hooves slipped, and he tumbled to the ground in a clumsy heap. Oof. Gregor groaned, his legs sprawled out in every direction. Bessie calmly approached him, still walking at her own pace. You okay, Gregor? Gregor sat up, covered in mud, and laughed sheepishly. Guess I got a little too excited there. Maybe patience is more important than I thought. Bessie smiled warmly. It's not about being slow. It's about being careful and thoughtful. Sometimes, it's not about rushing to win, but making sure you don't fall on your face while trying. Gregor nodded. All right, I get it now. I guess I have a lot to learn. Bessie helped him up, and the two of them walked toward the finish line together. It wasn't the fastest race, but it had been a good lesson for Gregor. Later that day, as the sun began to set, Bessie and Gregor sat by the barn, resting after a long day of work. Gregor had learned a lot about patience, but there was still one thing on his mind. So, Bessie, Gregor said slowly, do you ever feel like you want to go fast again? I mean, really fast. Bessie smiled. I think there's a time for both, Gregor. Sometimes, you need to move quickly. But most of the time, it's better to slow down and think things through. Gregor thought for a moment, then grinned. So, does that mean we can race again sometime? Bessie laughed. Sure, Gregor. But next time, let's do it without the mud, okay? Gregor chuckled. Deal. And this time, I'll really take my time. As the evening drew to a close, Bessie looked over at Gregor, feeling a sense of pride. The young goat had learned an important lesson that day. Patience wasn't just about waiting. It was about understanding the right time to act and the wisdom to make the best decisions. Gregor might not be the wisest animal on the farm just yet, but he was certainly on the right path. And that was all Bessie could ask for.